Good day, grade 11 STEM students. This is your school on air in General Biology 1. I am your teacher, Jaiseline Vanessa Cornejo. Make sure to have your modules with you as we proceed with the first lesson for the school year 2020-2021 in General Biology 1. For postulate number 1, guys, ang ibig sabihin lang nito is that living things are made up of cells. Pag living organism ka, ibig sabihin ikaw ay mayroong cell. So, hindi lahat ng living organism ay composed of millions of cells, katulad natin. Other living organisms are composed of one cell and yet considered as one organism. So, if you are considered as living, ibig sabihin, you are made up of a cell or made up of cells. Okay? And remember that this cells or one cell is the structural and functional unit of all living things. Ibig sabihin, yung pinakamaliit na yon, yung cell na yon, yun yung nagtatrabaho para makabuo tayo ng isang living organism. Kaya nga, di ba, we have the cell. Pag pinagsama natin, we have the tissue. Pag pinagsama ang tissue, we have our organ. Pag pinagsama yung iba't ibang mga organs, we have the organ system. Pag pinagsama natin lahat ng organ system natin, katulad sa tao, you have the digestive, the urinary, the circulatory system, makakabuo tayo ng isang organism. And if we make up different organisms, we have a population. Pag meron tayong iba't ibang population, we make up a community. And if we have different communities, we make up our biosphere, diba? So, yun yung gusto lang iparating ng postulate number 1. That all known, ibig sabihin lahat ng alam natin na living things ay mayroong cell. Either iisa, dalawa, millions, or thousands. Okay? So, that is postulate number 1. For postulate number 2, all cells come from pre-existing cells by cell division. Ibig sabihin, hindi pwede na isang cell dito, tapos biglang isang iglap, may cell ulit dito. No. Ibig sabihin, pag may lumitaw na isang cell dito, ibig sabihin, may pinanggalingan pa siya na isang cell. Hindi naman pwede na ikaw, anak ka, tara, magic, meron ka. Ibig sabihin, may panggagalingan ka. May nanay at tatay ka na bumuo sa'yo, kaya nagkaroon ka. Ganun lang din sa cells natin. When a certain cell divide, magkakaroon tayo ng production ng isa pang cell. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, saka lang magkakaroon ng panibagong cell kapag may isang cell na nag-undergo ng cellular division. Okay? And number 3, cells contain hereditary information. Just to be clear, when we say hereditary information, we are talking about the DNA. The DNA found in our cells, especially inside the nucleus. So, yung DNA natin na ito, this is also known as the blueprint of life. Okay? So, pag sinabi natin blueprint of life, siya ang masusunod sa kung ano ang magiging itsura natin. Kung ang ilong mo ba ay matangos, ang mata mo ba ay singkit, ang kulay ba ng balat mo ay magiging morena o magiging maputi. Okay? So, that would be our DNA. And every cell has its DNA. Kahit pa ikaw ay prokaryotic or ikaw ay eukaryotic, you have your DNA, also known as the hereditary information, which is being passed on from one cell to being passed on during cellular division yun. Whenever your cell divides, your DNA also duplicates. So, pag nag-duplicate yun, ibig sabihin, mapapass on na niya dun sa isa pang mabubuo na cell yung kanyang genetic information. Okay? So, that is for postulate number 3. But now, we have 2 additional postulates because sabi nga natin, science is not definite. Science is always changing. Everything is always changing. So, we have postulate number 4. All cells are basically the same in chemical composition. This is why we can say that the primitive cells are almost the same with the cells present sa atin. Only that we have several modification. But basically, every cell is the same in chemical composition. Okay, yun nga lang mayroong mga modifications. May mga pagbabago, but still, we have the same chemical, almost the same chemical composition. That is why if you are going to search in your Google, in your phones, we humans are almost the same with the DNA present in our evolutionary, ano ba tawag dito? We are almost the same with the evolutionary kamag-anak natin, which are the apes. Actually, we share 96% of our DNA sa mga apes. So basically, yung 4% na naiiba na yon, yun yung wala na tayong buhok, nakakapagsalita tayo, we walk upright, etc., etc. But basically, if we are going to go down to the cellular level, everyone is the same. Basically the same with respect to the chemical composition. Number 5, all energy flow, whether it would be metabolism and biochemistry of life, occurs within cells. So, everything that is happening in the outside, the environment, ganun din po sa inside environment ng cells natin. Okay? So, energy flow, meaning iba't ibang types ng energy. So, whether pagpasok ng katawan natin, it's stored energy. Once inside our cell, gagamitin natin yon. It could become mechanical energy. It could also dissipate as heat energy. So, merong flow ng energy from outside to inside and inside to outside and from inside to outside. So, energy flow occurs within our cells. Okay? So, para tayong magkakwento dito. So, we have Robert Hooke. So, he was the first person, an English scientist. He first used the term cells in 1665. So, paano niya nakuha yung idea na cells in 1965? So, he was observing. So, alam naman natin ang mga tao, very curious. And Robert Hooke is one of those persons na napaka-curious. He observed under his microscope of his own design, a cork. Yung cork, yung nilalagay natin ito dun sa wine, yung pangtakip natin para yung wine natin ay masarap pa rin kapag titikman natin at hindi plastic yung lasa niya. So, under a microscope, not the microscope that we use today, under his microscope, tinignan niya kung ano yung laman ng cork. And again, di ba, as we all know, cork comes from a bark of a tree. So, since a tree is a living organism, it is composed of cells. So, what he saw under the microscope are cork cells. So, para siyang mga maliliit na box na magkakatabi. At kung isipin nyo kung anong ibig sabihin ng cell in English, selda, kulungan. Kaya niya naisip na cell ang ipangalan. Kasi nung nakita niya under the microscope, parang magkakatabing box na parang kulungan. Okay, so that was Mr. Robert Hooke, an English scientist who first used the word cells. Okay? Number 2, we have another important person, MATTHIAS SCHLEIDEN. So, si MATTHIAS SCHLEIDEN, he is the person after 200 years after Robert Hooke discovering the cell. Since he is a botanist and he is an advocate of plant, he focused on the plant tissues. What is inside the plants? So what he saw is that plants are also composed of the cells that Robert Hooke was trying to say in 1665. But mind you, again, this was almost 200 years after Robert Hooke. So MATTHIAS SCHLEIDEN was known for that. He focused on plant tissues and described that plant tissues are composed of cells as well. On the other hand, Theodor Schwann. Theodor Schwann is a physiologist. He is studying tissues. So he made a similar discovery with that of MATTHIAS SCHLEIDEN, only that he focused in animal tissues. So what he found out is that animal tissues are also composed of cells. So during their conversation, siguro magkaibigan, si Schleiden at saka si Schwann. So what they propose is that both plants and animals are composed of cells. That's why in 1852 we have Robert Remak. So Robert Rimac is a neurologist and embryologist. So what he did was that he thought and published an evidence that cells are being derived from another cells and not poof, just out of the blue, meron tayong panibagong cell. So he thought and gave evidence na ang bawat cell ay nanggagaling sa isa pang cell. Okay, so, but during that time, alam naman natin that hindi lahat ng sinasabi ng mga tao sa science ay pinaniniwalaan agad ng mga tao. So, it was questioned. But 3 years later, there was Rudolf Virchow. And Rudolf Virchow, maybe he had more evidence, more convincing evidence, because he is a well-respected pathologist. When we say pathologist, he studies different strains of bacteria or different sicknesses. He published an editorial essay entitled Cellular Pathology. So, what he popularized the concept of the cell theory using the Latin phrase omnis cellula a cellula, meaning all cells arise from pre-existing cells. So, this is essentially the second postulate. So, given the similarity in between Virchow and then Rimac, nagkaroon ng discussion regarding sa kung sino yung kailangan mabigyan ng credit. But today, in science, madalas ang nabibigyan ng credit was Rudolf Virchow. That is why in the 3 postulates, it was MATTHIAS SCHLEIDEN, Theodor Schwann, and Rudolf Virchow na nababanggit doon sa cell theory natin na postulates, na silang tatlo yung nag-found or bumuo ng tinatawag natin na cell theory. On the 4th postulate, additional ito kasi nga sabi ko nga sa inyo, tuloy na nagbabago ang science, maraming naidadagdag araw-araw. So, all cells, in order for you to replicate another cell, nagde-depend tayo dun sa ability ng cell na mag-store, mag-retrieve, at mag-translate ng genetic instruction. Again, these genetic instructions or hereditary information are found in our DNA. So, lahat ng cell natin, they are made up of DNA. Meron silang DNA sa loob nila. So, in order for an organism to survive, they need this DNA. Okay, so itong DNA na ito, it is being passed on from generation to generation. So, habang tumatagal ang panahon, ito rin yung nagiging reason kung bakit nagkakaroon ng evolution. Evolution na pwedeng biglaan, pwede rin namang evolution na it could be very gradual as time goes by. Na nangyari nga during the theory of evolution. And from, again, sabi natin, this will only be possible, lalo na sa atin, na higher form of animals, through the organism's reproductive cells, which are your sperm and your egg cells. So, your sperm and your egg has hereditary information, the sperm coming from the daddy and then the egg coming from mommy. So when they meet and make a baby, they consist of DNA na pinagmix between mommy and daddy, creating a new individual. And yung DNA na nabuo doon, so nagsama doon, it will be the one na again magpupush through sa kung anong itsura nung magiging anak or magiging organism after pong magkaroon ng fertilization. Okay, so again, our genetic information is the blueprint of our life. Parang sa bahay lang yan. May blueprint ang bahay. So kung anong magiging itsura ng bahay, it's in the blueprint. Kaya napaka-essential nun. So, ganun din. Kung ano yung blueprint of life natin, that's your DNA. Kung ano yung nandun, yun ang lalabas. Okay? So, kung nandun sa DNA mo na matangos ang ilong mo, matangos ang ilong mo. Okay? So, yun yung sinasabi natin na blueprint of life. Which gave way to the fourth postulate. Na yun nga, cells are basically the same in chemical composition. Okay? So, lahat ng cells sa katawan natin ay binubuo ng organic saka inorganic compounds. Okay? So, magsimula yan sa pinakamaliit hanggang sa pinakamalaki. Binubuo yan ng inorganic and organic compounds. Yun yung sinasabi ng idea, basically the same chemical composition. So, ano yung mga inorganic and organic na yung mga yon? We have the different elements, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, phosphorus, and sulfur. So, normally, kapag yung katawan natin, binubuo naman to 99% and then the other trace elements na lang. So, kapag pinagsama-sama natin ito na yung bumubuo sa katawan natin, which are known as the organic biomolecules. So, pag sinabi nating organic biomolecules, ito na yung apat na bumubuo ng mga macromolecules natin. Number 1, we have our nucleic acids. Number 2, we have our proteins. Number 3, we have our carbohydrates. And number 4, our lipids. Pag sinabi nating nucleic acids, these are your DNA and your RNA. Okay, so these two are very, very important. Pag sinabi natin DNA, again, that's the blueprint of life. Pag sinabi natin na RNA, these are the ones responsible for producing proteins, which are very essential sa katawan natin, di ba? One example would be our muscles. So, on the other hand, we have also proteins. So, itong proteins natin na ito, again, it is very important. Isa yan sa mga pinakamarami sa katawan natin. Not only our muscles, we also have our nails, our hair, all of those are proteins. Ano pa meron sa proteins natin? The enzymes na ginagamit natin pagtunaw ng pagkain natin, those are also proteins. So, they are very essential. Another, polysaccharides or our carbohydrates, the energy-giving foods, diba? Which we get from the food that we eat. So, itong mga to, ito yung main na pinagkukuhanan natin ng energy ng katawan natin. And lastly, of course, we have our lipids, also known as our fats. So, these lipids are pag fats kasi madalas ang connotation natin it's negative, but actually we have lipids that are very, very important when it comes to the proper functioning of our cells. One example would be the cell membrane, yung cover ng cell natin. So the covering of our cell, it's a combination of lipids or fats and phosphorus. So just imagine kung wala yung lipids na yon, madidissolve sa water yung buong cell natin kasi papasok na lang dire-diretso yung tubig sa loob nang walang tigil. So again, these four are the organic biomolecules that makes up our cell. So whether you are a single-celled organism or a multi-celled organism katulad natin, itong apat na tong organic biomolecules na ito, they make up an organism. Okay? And number 5, of course, the all-energy flow. Sabi ko nga sa inyo kanina, there are different processes happening inside our cells. If in our body, pagkain natin, o kaya ng paglabas ng mga toxic materials, or the movement of our cell, kailangan ng energy yon, of course. So, anong mga klaseng cellular processes? Yung building up, breaking down ng complex molecules, diba? So, lahat yun, dadaan yun to the cellular level, yung pagsipsip ng nutrients through our blood, diba? Pag-digest muna sa digestive system natin, and then yung nutrients na makukuha sa digestion, pupunta sa circulatory system natin. So, yung mga cellular processes na yun dun dumadaan yung energy na ginagamit natin sa katawan natin. Okay? So, again, if we are going to recap, let's proceed with the major and subcellular organelles of our cells. So again, guys, after ng topic natin na ito, we are going to proceed with the different types of cells. So we have our animal cells and then the plant cell. But before that, we are going to deal with the major and subcellular organelles of our cells. Ano yung mga madalas makikita natin later on? Number 1, of course, is our nucleus. So the nucleus is the brain of our cell. It's just like our brain, okay, sa katawan natin, that allows proper functioning. So, in our cells, we have the nucleus. So, the nucleus is the one that is going to dictate what will happen inside our cell. Why? Because again, sabi ko nga sa inyo kanina, it is where our DNA or genetic information is present. At ang DNA, it's your blueprint of life, diba? Yun yung masusunod. So, since yun ay nasa nucleus, si nucleus ang brain center ng atin pong mga cells. So, both in plant and animal cells, we have our nucleus. If Again ha, you are a eukaryotic organism. When you say a eukaryotic organism, meron kang nucleus. Okay? Your DNA is inside the nucleus. Pero kapag wala ang DNA sa loob ng nucleus at nakakalat lang sa loob ng cell, you are a prokaryote. Pero tayo, humans, animals, and plants, we are eukaryotic organisms. Okay? So again, inside the nucleus, we have our genetic information, the DNA inside our nucleus. Okay, number 2, the cell membrane. Kumbaga, pag sinabi nating cell membrane, this is the gate, the fence ng ating cell. Okay, so ano ba ang ginagawa ng gate? Ano bang ginagawa ng fence? Of course, it's for protection. So, ang cell membrane natin, it's double layered in animals and forms the outer cell boundary. So, para hindi nga basta-basta labas-pasok ang kung anong-ano mang mga compounds sa loob at labas ng cell natin. Sa plants natin, may additional layer. We have what we call the cell wall. So, bakit kailangan ng additional layer? Alam naman natin that plants are prone to dehydration. So, in order to prevent dehydration, meron tayong additional layer. We have the cell wall. And that cell wall in plants allows yung plants natin to be more rigid and more sturdy at kaya nilang nakatayo ng upright, maghapon, magdamag. Okay? And what is present inside the cell wall of plants? It's their cellulose. It's an example of a carbohydrate or sugar. Number 3, okay, we have the cytoplasm. The cytoplasm is the space in between your cell membrane and then your nucleus. So, si nucleus nasa gitna, di ba? So, ang cytoplasm natin, yun yung lalagyan ng iba't ibang organelles sa loob ng cell natin. Okay? So, yun siya yung mismong lalagyan. And the liquid in our cytoplasm is called the CYTOSOL. So, yung cytosol natin, liquid siya. More water. Bakit water? Para mas madali yung transportation ng iba't ibang mga compounds sa loob ng cell natin kung saan kailangan yung mga compounds na yun. Okay? Number 4, manufacturing organelles. We have the endoplasmic reticulum. Pag sinabi nating endoplasmic reticulum, ang iisipin nyo dito are the sorting center. Okay? Pag sinabi nating sorting center, a factory. Ang endoplasmic reticulum natin para siyang factory. Kung ano-anong mga compound ang ginagawa sa loob niya. So, ang endoplasmic reticulum natin may smooth and rough. Sa rough natin, kaya siya considered as rough kasi meron siyang ribosome. So, yung mga bilog-bilog na nakalagay sa endoplasmic reticulum natin, those are your ribosomes. At if you can remember in your grade 10 or lower grade levels, pag sinabi nating ribosomes, it is the site for protein synthesis. So, when we say protein synthesis and those ribosomes are on our endoplasmic reticulum, that is going to be considered as rough endoplasmic reticulum. That's why, kapag rough endoplasmic reticulum ka, it is the site for protein synthesis. On the other hand, pag sinabi natin na smooth endoplasmic reticulum, syempre, wala kang ribosome. So, ano ang ginagawa sa'yo? Anong ginagawa sa loob ng ating smooth endoplasmic reticulum? We are creating lipids or fats. Synthesizing lipids or fats. Okay? So, wag pagbabalik na rin when we are talking about rough endoplasmic reticulum, proteins. If we are going to talk about smooth endoplasmic reticulum, we are creating lipids. Okay? So, rough proteins, RP, and then our smooth endoplasmic reticulum are for lipids. Okay? RP and SL. Okay? And then, we also have our Golgi apparatus. So, sabi ko kanina, factory ang endoplasmic reticulum. Ang Golgi apparatus naman natin is the packaging center. So, para na nga po siyang LBC, ganyan. Para na siyang JRX Express, at kung ano-ano pang mga padalahan. O, FedEx, yung mga yan. Okay, so anong ginagawa ni Golgi apparatus? Once tapos nang magawa ni rough at saka ni smooth yung kanilang lipid and proteins, dumidiretso yun kay Golgi apparatus. So what Golgi apparatus do is pinapackage niya. inaayos niya yung laman ng protein at saka ng lipids. So, pwede niyang dadagdagan ng ganitong compound, dadagdagan niya ng ganitong compound, depende sa kung anong kailangan ng buong cell natin or kailangan sa iba pang cell. Kaya packaging center ang Golgi apparatus. Okay? So, paano pag natapos na, na-package na niya, ayan na, nakasort na, packaging na, ipapadala na. So, ang mangyayari, si Golgi apparatus, meron siyang mga vesicles sa tabi niya. So, the vesicles are the ones responsible para magdala nung mga na-package na yon na compounds all throughout the cell or even outside the cell. So, just imagine LBC, nakapag-sort na, yung mga manpower nila, yung motor, yung van, yung truck na ginagamit nila in order to transport those packages, yun si vesicles natin. Okay? But aside from vesicles, which are storage organelles, we also have the vacuoles. Pag sinabi nating vacuoles, these are either for water, for food, ions, or enzymes. But basically, the vacuoles are for water and food. Lalo na sa mga halaman. Vacuoles in plants are very, very big because of the presence of sugar being produced during photosynthesis. The energy-producing organelles, we have two. So, one are for both plants and animals, that's your mitochondria, and one is present only in plants. So, let's have the mitochondria, the powerhouse of your cell. It's just like, sabi ko nga, i-cell ko. So, anong ginagawa ng i-cell ko? It powers up the different houses sa iba't ibang lugar dito sa Isabela. Okay? So, ganun si mitochondria. It makes up energy. Bumubuo siya ng energy. So, paano ang gagawin sa energy na yun? I-distribute niya all throughout the cell para may magamit si cell in order to proceed with the different processes na kailangan niya. So, yun ang trabaho ni mitochondria. Paano pag nag-stop si mitochondria? Okay. It will end the life of the cell. That is why kailangan dire-diretso ang production ni mitochondria ng energy. Pero paano kukuha? Saan kukuha si mitochondria ng energy? It will get the energy from the food, of course, that we eat. Pero kapag ikaw ay halaman, of course, it will be from photosynthesis. At saan nangyayari yung photosynthesis na yon? Sa kabila. Okay? Which is inside the chloroplast. So, yung chloroplast natin, para siyang dish-shaped na organelles only found in plants. And, of course, siya ay green because of chlorophyll is the pigment that makes the chloroplast green. So, because of that chlorophyll, siyang responsible para mag-harvest ng light. So, that light will be one of the key ingredients para mag-undergo ng photosynthesis ang mga halaman natin. So, you'll be needing water, light, and of course, carbon dioxide in order for photosynthesis to happen and produce the sugar that are needed or being produced by plants. Okay. The next one are the breakdown organelles. So, ibig sabihin, may mga tagadurog tayo. So, hindi lang yung stomach natin, hindi lang yung ngipin, hindi lang yung digestive small intestine and large intestine natin. There are also digestive organelles in our cells. Okay, we have the lysosomes and then the peroxisomes. So, the lysosomes is the one responsible kapag meron ng worn out na cell or meron ng worn out na part ng cell or luma na hindi na nagpa-function, the lysosome will engulf that one and then sisirain niya, i-breakdown niya. Okay, yun ang ginagawa ni lysosome. On the other hand, we have the peroxisomes. So ito naman, what will it do is that it will break down toxic material. So, for example, pag meron kayong na-ingest na toxic material, madedetect yun ng cell mo. So, i-mimigrate yun ni peroxisomes. I-digest niya or i-breakdown niya yung toxic materials na yun para hindi na makakaaberya doon sa functioning ng cells natin. And of course, we also have the last one. So, ang cells natin, hindi yan nandyan lang, na nakasteady lang. Okay? So, ang cells natin inside undergoes movement and communication between the different organelles. So, paano nagkakaroon ng movement sa loob ng cell natin? This will be brought by three. The cytoskeleton, the centrosome, and then the cilia and flagella. The cytoskeleton is also the skeleton na parang sa katawan natin. Kumbaga, merong mga framework na nakalatag doon sa cytoplasm ng cell natin na tinatawag na cytoskeleton, na kung saan siya yung magpapamove ng iba't ibang parts ng cell. For example, the vesicles. Sabi ko sa inyo, di ba, kanina, nagtatransport ang vesicles from one place to another, depende kung saan kailangan. So, ang gagawin, paano mag-move si vesicle? So, it will be moved by the cytoskeleton. And on a cell, sa isang cell, kung mapapansin niyo, meron tayong tinatawag na centrosome. So, itong centrosome na ito is only present in animal cells, because this is not present in plant cells. So, centrosome is responsible for the movement of our genetic information, our DNA, yung mukhang mga butterfly during cellular division na nagmo-move from one pole to another pole, or sa gitna papunta sa kabilang pole. So that's your centrosome. And of course, last one will be your cilia and flagella. These are more common sa mas lower form ng mga animals natin. So meron tayong mga bacteria, meron tayong mga protozoans that are using cilia and flagella in order for them to move. And of course, they are single-celled organism. But for us, multicellular organisms, we also have this. One example will be cilia sa nose natin. We also have cilia sa trachea natin para nagkakaroon ng pagsala ng hangin at yung mga dumi ay masasala niya. And of course, the best example for the flagella na present sa human beings would be sa sperm cells. So, our the sperm cells of men they have the flagellum para makapag-move sila from the testes of the male palabas papunta sa penis ng lalaki. So, yun yung gamit ng ating cilia and flagella for movement and communication in between our organelles. Ayan. So, again, those are the major parts of our cells. Again, we have the nucleus, the brain. Number 2, we have the cell membrane, the protection, na merong kakambal pagdating sa plants, the cell wall, which are made up of cellulose, the cytoplasm, the inner portion of our cell, except the nucleus, wherein nandito yung tubig, yung tinatawag natin na CYTOSOL. Number 4, the manufacturing organelles, you have your Golgi apparatus, na nagpa-package nung ginawa ng endoplasmic reticulum na pwedeng protein kapag rough endoplasmic reticulum, and then pwede namang maging lipid kapag smooth endoplasmic reticulum. And of course, these packages are being transported from one place to another through our vesicles. Okay, so yung vesicles kasama niya yung vacuoles. And then we also have energy producing organelles. 1, mitochondria present on both plants and animals, which is the powerhouse of the cell, and the chloroplast wherein photosynthesis happens. And the breakdown organelles, which are the lysosomes and peroxisomes, and for movement and communication of organelles will be the cytoskeleton, the centrosome, and the cilia and flagella. So I'm hoping that you have a better understanding of the cell theory and of course the different organelles that are present in a certain cell in order to have a proper functioning of the smallest structural and functional unit ng ating katawan as a living organism or as a cell na bumubuo sa atin. So, ayun. If you have questions, if you have ideas, suggestions that you want to share, pwede lang namang i-chat sa group chat natin. And you are very much welcome to ask questions kung may hindi kayo naintindihan. Ayun. But, please do it sa tamang oras, sa tamang araw. At always be polite. Okay, when asking questions. Ayun. So, again, hoping and praying na aside from sa discussion natin, naintindihan nyo ng maayos yung discussion and sagutan ng mabuti yung mga activities for you to better understand whatever I have taught you today. Ayan. So, again, kahit na pandemic, let's have a very productive, a very fruitful learning. But again, this will only be possible if kami, tutulungan namin kayo, but at the same time, kayo, tutulungan niyo yung inyong mga sarili. Ayan. So again, grade 11 STEM students, have a wonderful day and happy answering your modules. Okay, bye-bye.